Hey, what's up? It's Bon. Let's talk about Mass Effect. And today I'm going to chat about which ending BioWare may choose to canonize for the next Mass Effect game. First, if you like Mass Effect, BioWare, gaming news, and discussions in general, please consider subscribing to the channel, liking this video, and commenting down below with what you think about what I think, your own ideas, questions you may have, or just say hello. It all helps the algorithm and to get this video noticed. Okay, let's just jump right into it. So this will be kind of a culmination of my thoughts and how they've evolved over the last year and a half, almost 2 years since the first time I beat the trilogy, and since then have dove headfirst into the community and picked up other people's takes and evolved my own thoughts and so on and so forth. And I think what is still probably one of the most passionate conversations that you can stumble upon in the community right now is how they're going to handle the end of Mass Effect 3 in the next game. Now, one thing I'm not going to get into is the next game and kind of what we know so far, because we don't know much. We can do some educated speculation, but we really don't know anything concrete. So I'm going to try to leave out most of my personal speculation and others about what we've seen so far, because at the end of the day, people are so far apart in what they think the next game may be. There's not really a point in trying to discuss it like there's a general acceptance of what is going to happen at this point. So we will just focus on the endings and we'll go from there. So the first idea is probably the ideal one, that they will not canonize an ending and all of the trilogy endings will be respected in some capacity. I think this is obviously the one that would be most appreciated by everyone. And I think when someone like myself is so hardcore about one of the endings being canonized, it's not because I don't want this option. I don't not want all of the endings to be respected. It's just purely from a game development point of view and a story point of view. I just don't see how they respect all of the endings and make a game in any reasonable amount of time. And I consider myself relatively creative, and I've paid a lot of attention to people who think all of the endings can be respected. And my issue is that typically the way that people have come up with to respect all of the endings is to basically dismiss all of them. The main idea I've seen is, well, there's a subset of people who believe the next game is taking place hundreds of years after Mass Effect 3, and the idea is just to say, well, let's just have the story kind of explain that no matter which ending was picked, it basically faded by the time this game starts. The consequences are gone. We no longer see people with synthesized bodies because they've all died and the next generation didn't have them. In Control, Shepard took all of the Reapers back to dark space. In Destroy, everything's been rebuilt and everything is all hunky-dory now. The argument I've made is that if you do this, I would say you are dismissing all of the endings, which is arguably worse than picking one. In my idea, my second proposal here was none of the trilogy endings. But at the end of the day, I think these become the same thing. If you basically try to make it so generic, and just basically wipe away whatever the ending was, I would argue that is more disrespectful to the people, to all of the players, than if you pick one ending, especially if it's the most popular one, and go hard at it. So I feel like a lot of people who are afraid of canonizing anything, or maybe just don't like the destroy ending, they always propose this like, well, just put it so far out that it doesn't matter. I think they unintentionally dismiss all of the endings just the way they're afraid of their personal preferred one could be dismissed if, say, destroy is canonized. And so that's my take on that. None of the trilogy endings being another one. That would be basically retcon. Heaven forbid they go back and actually take the indoctrination theory seriously, or basically just make up their own story about what happened after the beam fired, and whatever choice you made, that whatever we saw on screen actually isn't what happened. I mean, they could do that, I guess. I think that would fall under a similar category as what I just said, though. I think it would fall under the same idea of, it may be more disrespectful to ignore all of the endings than it would be to pick one and take it seriously and fully respect it and go all in on it. Because I guess my whole take on canonization of one of the endings is that you're really just proposing that next game would just be one of the possibilities of what would happen. The people whose choices aren't necessarily respected, you can push it out in a way of, we aren't saying that those endings couldn't happen. We're just deciding to go down this one path instead. Whether that will soften the blow or not, I don't know. I still think that trying to make all of the endings work or ignoring them all is worse than picking one and taking it seriously. Now, the refusal ending, I think, is an interesting one to think about. I would say what they've shown us so far in the teasers, I know I said I wouldn't do this, but for refusal, I will do this. We know Liara is in the next game, at least in some capacity, and there's pretty good hints that this isn't a game that's taking place 10,000, 20,000, 30,000 years later. It could, I guess. Maybe Liara was an AI and, it wasn't really her. But refusal seems unlikely simply because of what we have seen. It arguably could be the best way for them to completely scrap everything that we've known and start over from scratch. And even have it be one of these things where either through Prothean beacons or the little beacons that Liara leaves behind, it would be maybe kind of interesting to see a story where another species or a new galactic council comes upon Liara's messages and actually begins preparing for the Reapers. And we see what a Reaper war would look like when the when the species are expecting them. That could be kind of cool. I have to be totally honest. That might be kind of neat, but I don't think that's where we're going, because everything they've shown us so far doesn't seem to indicate that. So then we hit the big three. We hit the control ending. Let's go with that. So with the control ending, Shepard has essentially sacrificed themselves to become the catalyst, to become the leader of the Reapers, or the Reapers synthesis, or whatever. And in the endings, we see that Shepard takes the Reapers away. My main issue with that ending, and maybe this is an argument for it, I don't know, is that I just, think that would be so completely out of character for Shep, basically no matter how you play the game, though I could be wrong. Everyone's Shepard is unique, even though I would argue that Shepard is BioWare's character and not really ours as much as we want it to be ours. But regardless, my issue is that I would say there's almost a certainty that a Shepard-led Reaper force would eventually become corrupted with power, with the influence of others, and so on, and the cycle would continue. I have very little, if not zero, faith that the Reapers wouldn't be corrupted once again, and that Shepard would not be the perfect leader, that would not be the perfect controller of that force, and I think we would just kind of end up in the same situation as before, which I think is kind of boring. I don't like that personally. Now with Synthesis, we see that it's kumbaya. Everyone has been brought into one understanding. The Reapers are helping rebuild. My main issue with this one is the same one as that it seems like a lot of people have, is the whole idea that just making the choice for the entire galaxy to just combine synthetics and organics. It just seems like an abuse of power. It seems wrong. A lot of these people, a lot of these species and individuals would not have probably preferred this. And I really find it hard to believe that even this would bring complete peace and lack of suffering and stuff, because even within we look at the Geth, and even within the Geth they had heretics, and they had members who didn't have the agreements, who disagreed about the future course of action. And so eventually, even though the whole point of Synthesis would be to get everyone on the same page, I think that would fail. And now you could argue that that would be an interesting way to attack the next game, is to see that happen. I personally don't. I actually, Synthesis is my least favorite ending choice, because it just feels so just. Well, we'll just put everyone in the same. Alan Shepard has to disintegrate themselves for it to happen. Has to sacrifice themselves with really no gain. I've just never liked the Synthesis ending that much, even less so than Control, because Control at least leads to some interesting future prospects. But Synthesis, I don't know. It's just not my thing. I really think that it would just be an abuse of power by Shepard and anyone else who would be part of that choice. And then we come to Destroy. So I will be very clear that this is my personal preference. I think the Destroy ending is what is hinted to in the goal for all three games. I think we see examples of people trying to explore the themes of Control. We see them explore the themes of Synthesis, and I think we are shown throughout the series that those things just wouldn't work. I know that the Geth Quarian War, especially if you make peace, is supposed to say, hey, look, we can all get along. But I have zero faith that that's a long-term peace deal. I have zero faith that that peace lasts, because the conflicts will arise, and the Geth have shown that they will go to the bad guys for help when they have to, and the Quarians have shown that they will be impulsive when they don't have to be. So I still think that Destroy is the best ending for it just makes sense with the trilogy, and I also think it's the best ending for the future because it truly rids us of the burden of the Reapers. I really believe the next game in the future of Mass Effect has to get past the Reapers. I don't think they can even be a presence. So like whether they're in deep space like in Control, whether they're friendly like in Synthesis, I just really think that getting rid of them completely, but letting their legend remain and the lessons learned from them remain would be the most interesting. I truly believe this next game will be a lot about not one big bad, but a big political thriller of power vacuums being filled by whoever's there to fill them, and the Citadel Council trying to grasp back onto power over the whole galaxy, and maybe even exploring new parts of the galaxy, and so on and so forth. And I feel like those things are best explored by the Destroy ending, where we have truly ridden ourselves of the burden of the Reapers. I really and there's an interesting story to be told about AI, because every single civilization, species, council will be trying to be the first ones to get AI back. It's not gone forever, that it will be recovered. And we've even seen in some of the previews for the next game, some of the teasers and stuff, the Geth are obviously a part of the next game. And even if the Destroy ending happens and the Geth are wiped out, quote unquote, then getting them back, finding a protected server buried in a planet, finding one of their ships in deep space to bring them back, any of those things are there and lead to some really interesting story possibilities. I really think Destroy is the best one. I don't expect people to agree. If the response is, well, they just shouldn't make another game. Someone always says that in every video. Oh, they are, so get over it. If your response still is, all of the endings being respected would be best, I agree. My issue is that from a story perspective, but especially a production perspective, the idea, the only way I've thought of to make a game that respects all of the endings is either a game that would take 10 years to develop, or would be a game that kind of disrespects all of the endings. I think the whole trilogy was leading up to Destroy. I think it's the best way to move forward, and it's the one I hope they pick. There's a really good chance all of us are going to be wrong. Let's be honest. Mary DeMarley and that whole team, to be a fly on the wall of their office, their meeting room would be so interesting, because at this point, I'm sure they've decided what they're doing and they're all in on doing whatever they're doing. But I know my choice would be for them to make the Destroy ending happen, unless they can be magicians and make all of the endings work. But more than anything, I don't want any time travel. I don't want any giant time skips. I don't want to dismiss all of the endings. Heaven forbid they don't make the indoctrination ending a thing. I would like to see them narrow the story so then they can re-expand it in the next game or next games. And I would like to see them go hard at one potential ending and not all of them. And I say this even if they pick a direction I don't prefer. So that's what I think. Please let me know what you think in the comments. Please like the video if you enjoyed this. Please subscribe if you want more. That's all I have for this one. So until next time.